Okay, now we move to talk about another problem. This problem also talks about specialization and trade. The problem says, assuming that both Canada and Italy have a constant opportunity cost. Okay, constant opportunity cost. When we say constant opportunity cost, it means the BBF of both countries is straight line. Complete the missing numbers in the table below. The first question, complete the missing numbers here, here, and here. Okay, now, 2, for which good does Canada have a comparative advantage, and for which does Italy? 3, assume that Canada and Italy decided to trade 50x for 50y. Okay? Prove that both countries would be better off in the specialization trade case than in no specialization, no trade case. Okay, first of all, part 1, or question number 1, it says that assuming that both countries, are enjoying a constant opportunity cost. Okay, great. If they enjoy constant opportunity cost, each country, then to fill out the missing numbers, like 50 over here and 0 over here, 20. Since Canada, we start with Canada. Since Canada has a constant opportunity cost, then let us start with the, combination that doesn't have any missing. We start from, B. We do this in order to find out the value of the opportunity cost, because that value should be the same for all combinations as, we move from A to B, B to C to D, and so on and so forth. Okay? So now, as you move from B to A, as far as when X increases, or if you move from A to B as far as Y increases, doesn't matter. Okay? If I move from B to A, okay, along the BBF, then what happens? X increases from 100 to 150. So, moving from B to A, Canada will gain, additional 50 units of X. Will gain additional 50 units of X, as it moves from B to A. Now, that 50 new units of X, produced, are attained at the expense of units not produced of Y. So, as you move from B to A, the amount of X produced increases from 100 to 150. That is, new 50 units of X produced. And then the amount of Y decreases from 25 to 0. So here we're talking about we lost 25 units of Y. So the question is that, what is the opportunity cost, of Canada, the opportunity cost of producing X in terms of Y as we move from B to A? So the opportunity cost of 50 new units of X is equal to 25 units of Y. If 50X, the opportunity cost of 50X is 25 units of Y, then what is the opportunity cost of 1X? Over here. Okay? Opportunity cost of 50X equal 25Y. And so, opportunity cost of 1X equal 1/2 Y. That's with respect to, Canada. So, to find the missing, we should make sure that the opportunity cost, as you move from C to B, the opportunity cost of producing more units of X, okay, additional units of X, should also equal 1/2 units of Y. So what number should we put over here in this missing? 50. Because as you move from C to B, it should be 50. So we increase X by 50, should be 50 here. 50 to 100, that means 50. And then the y decreases by 25. And so the opportunity cost of 50x is equal to 25y. And so the opportunity cost of 1x is 1/2 y. So now we finished, filling the missing value or number here, because we have constant opportunity cost. So it's easy to find out the missing. So if you have a missing somewhere, then try to find first the opportunity cost, okay, in order to go back to the missing to complete it, to fill it up. Okay, the same thing can be said about Italy. Now, Italy also has a constant opportunity cost. Okay, we need to find the missing 0 and 120. So first, we look at any combination that doesn't have any missing numbers. So in order to find out the opportunity cost of one x or one y. So we come here, we say as we move from A to B, what happens? Y increases from 0 to 60. Okay. However, x decreases from 90 to 60. So what we say here? So opportunity cost of 60 y is equal what? Because x decreases from 90 to 60, that is it equal 30x. So opportunity cost of 60y equal 30x. So what is the opportunity cost of 1x? Or what is the opportunity cost of 1y? It doesn't matter, x or y, So opportunity cost of 1y is equal, we divide both sides by 60, okay? Divide by 60, you come up with what? 30 over 60x, which is equal 1 over 2x. So this is the opportunity cost of 1y is equal 1/2 x. Or the opportunity cost of x is equal what? 2y. Okay, great. If we know the opportunity cost of y is equal 1/2 x, then what should be written here? What should be put over here? What number we should use it to fill out the missing over here in order to make sure that the opportunity cost as you move from C to B is give you also 1/2 x. Of course, should be 120, because as you move from C to B, and the number is 120, so 120, as you move from B to C, we move from A to B, now we move from B to C, okay, 60 to 100 to 120. So what happens as you move from B to C, the amount of y increases by 60, and the amount of x decreases by 30. Same thing. So opportunity cost of 60y is equal 30x. We come up with the same. We go back to this same thing, and then the opportunity cost of 1y 1/2 x. Okay, great. Now same thing over here. The opportunity cost from C to D. As you move from C to D, okay, now we know now it is 120. So as you move from C to D, the amount of y increases from 120 to 180. That is, the amount of y, the number of units of y increases by 60 units. At the expense of what? Should be 30 to 0. Because we should have 1/2 unit. The opportunity cost of y should be 1/2 unit of x. So the only way to have the opportunity cost of 1y equal 1/2 x is that you should have 0 over here. So here we say opportunity cost of 60 additional y is equal 30 units of x not to produce. Therefore, the opportunity cost of 1y is equal 1/2 x. And so we put 0 and 120. Okay? Now, we move to question 2. Question 2 says, for which good does Canada have a comparative advantage? and for which does Italy. Now, you remember the concept of opportunity cost. We said, in the discussion of the lesson that a country is said to have a comparative advantage in the production of a certain good if it can produce that good at a lower cost than the other country. So which good Canada is able to produce at a lower cost than Italy? So we look over here. For Canada, opportunity cost of 1x equal 1/2 y. We can, of course, find the opportunity cost of y in terms of x. So, which means opportunity cost of 1y is equal to x. Great. For Italy, opportunity cost of 1x is equal to what? 2y. And now we find the opportunity cost of 1y with respect to Italy is going to be equal, opportunity cost of 1y is equal 1/2 x. Great. Now we have the opportunity cost. Now we see for x, as far as Canada is concerned, it produces x, and when it produces x, the cost of producing 1x is 1/2 y. What about Italy? The cost of producing 1x to y. So we say that Italy costs Italy more units of y to produce 1x than Canada. So Canada has an opportunity, Canada has a comparative advantage in the production of x. Why? Because it can produce x at lower cost. It costs 1x to produce, it costs Canada to produce 1x, 1/2 y. However, it costs Italy to produce 1x, 2y. Therefore, the cost of production is higher in Italy than in Canada. Therefore, Canada should focus upon the production of x, and Italy, the rule says, if one country or one individual, specializes in one good, then the other country should specialize in the other good. So we say here, Canada specializes or has a comparative advantage in x, and Italy has a comparative advantage in y. Why? Because look, for Canada, the cost of producing 1y, 2x. However, for Italy, the cost of producing 1y is 1/2 x. So in Canada, to produce 1y, Canada has to incur less cost than Italy has to incur less cost than Canada. Therefore, producing good y, is for Italy, because production of y should be, should be produced by Italy rather than Canada, because Italy has a lower cost to produce y than Canada. So we say now that Canada has a comparative advantage in x and Italy has a comparative advantage in y. Now, great. Now, 3, assume that Canada and Italy decided to trade 50x for 50y. So both decided that since now Canada has a comparative advantage in x and Italy has a comparative advantage in y, which means that Canada only specializes in x and Italy only specializes in y. Okay. However, Canada and Italy, as consumers, should also consume the other good. If Canada only produces x, but however Canada as a consumer should also consume y. Therefore, they should now trade. Okay? And so both decided to trade 50x for 50y, which means Canada gives 50x to Italy, and in return to that, Canada will receive 50y. So now, when Canada specializes in x, it produces at combination A, as you can see. When Italy specializes in y, it produces in combination D, here. In other words, Canada produces only x and no y, and Italy produces only y and no x. Now, after the trade, what happens? Canada gives 50x and get 50y. when Canada gives 50 units of X to Italy, it will end up with 100 units of X. Okay? And it will receive from Italy 50 Y. So after specialization and trade, the shape of its data will be like this. This is after specialization and trade. In Canada will get 100 X and 50 Y. Italy, when Italy gives 50 units of Y, she receives in return 50 units of X. So now, when it gives 50 units of Y, it ends up with 130 units of Y. And then also she receives, 50 units of X. So after specialization and trade, Italy will have the following: 50 and 130. Okay? Now, before no specialization and trade, this is, we assume that Canada and Italy were here, because before specialization and trade, Canada must consume X and Y. So both, they were at sea. They were at sea here. They were at convention C. In other words, Canada were producing 50 units of X and 50 units of Y. And Italy was producing 30 units of X and 120 units of Y. This is because both, before specialization and trade, they have to depend upon themselves. Of course, as producer, as a consumer. Therefore, they should be producing 50 and 50, 30 and 120. Now, this is before specialization and trade. This is their, this is how much output they have. Now, look after specialization and trade. Canada is now 100X after specialization and trade, but before specialization and trade, it has 50. So we have an increase in the amount of X in Canada. In Y, still has 50 and 50. So what we see here for Canada, after specialization and trade, Canada enjoyed an increase in one good, which is X, and no decrease in the other good. That implies the standard of living in Canada has increased. Why? Because more production of X is being experienced in Canada. So more production, it means, more, higher level of employment, more income, which implies higher standard of living in Canada. What about Italy? Look at Italy here. Italy, before specialization and trade, Italy enjoys only 30 units of X and 120 units of Y. But however, after specialization and trade, it enjoyed 50 units of X and 130 units of Y. So we see here an increase in the amount of X and the amount of Y. So therefore, Italy is experiencing a very high standard of living, because the amount of X has increased, the amount of Y has increased, and the increase in X and Y requires more employment and also higher income, which implies that higher standard. Okay, now we move to solve a few more questions. We start with problem number 6. Actually, it's a question. Suppose a nation's PPF shifts inward, not outward, inward, as its population grows. So here we see something opposite to the other. You have the nation's production decreases, however, the nation's population increases. So what happens on average to the nation's standard of living of the people? So when you see that the growth of the economy is going down, or the production of output in that economy is going down, whereas the population is going up, then here you're going to experience a lower standard of living. Why? Because shifting of the PPF inward implies that it will decrease the economy as a whole, because it would have fewer goods under its disposal to distribute to more people in the economy. Okay? as a result of this, then each individual in the economy, of course, would get less and less goods and services. That actually means, in the final analysis, a lower standard of living. A lower standard of living. So you see here, the thing about this question is that when an economy is, is experiencing a decrease in its output, in the production of goods and services, and at the same time it is experiencing an increase in its population, then at the end you're going to experience a lower standard of living in the economy. Right. Now we move to problem setting. In the following figure, which graph depicts a technological breakthrough in the production of good X only? So you have here 4 graphs. Okay? You have good X along the horizontal axis, good Y along the vertical axis, of course. And you see here the PBF, here the PBF is shifting outward. Here the PBF is shifting inward. Here the PBF is shifting outward. However, it is the maximum output of X increases. However, the maximum output of Y is fixed, is constant. Here you can see also a shifting of the PBF outward. However, the maximum output of Y increases. However, the maximum output of X stays the same. So it's the question, which of the following figures, depicts a technological breakthrough in the production of good X only? Of course, of good X only, you can see graph 3. Why? Because that technological breakthrough, that advance in technology, is biased toward the production of X. Okay? So, which implies that X increases, the maximum output of X increases, however, the maximum output of Y stays the same. Now, 8, in the preceding figure, this figure, which graph depicts a change in the PBF that is a likely consequence of war? When you have a war, definitely you're going to expect a decrease in output because, maybe there is some destruction of factories. So at the end, you're going to have less production of goods and services. So which one of those basically represent, a change in PBF that is a likely consequence of war? Of course, when you see an inward shift in the PBF. Which one? This one over here. Because when you have a war, it means less production of goods and services, which means a shifting inward of the PBF. And this one represents a shifting inward of the PBF. The PBF here is, shifting inward, which means lower output of good of X and Y. Lower output, lower goods of X and Y produced as a consequence of the war. Of course, 9, PBF1 is in the following graph is the relevant PBF. You have 3 PBF over here. The first one is PBF1, the second PBF2, the third is PBF3. Now suppose that PBF1 is the relevant one, is the one we are focusing upon. Okay? Now, then which points are unattainable? You remember, unattainable combinations are the ones that beyond the PBF. If this is the PBF we are, talking about, then all the combinations that are beyond this PBF are considered unattainable. So here we're talking about J, I, H, D, E, F, and G are unattainable. However, the attainable combinations are what? This point here, A, B, and C are attainable because they are along the PBF or inside the PBF. The combinations that are along the PBF or inside the PBF are attainable. However, the combinations that are beyond or above the PBF are considered unattainable.